Good evening, everyone. I'm Colleen Marshall, and we thank you for joining us for this Veterans Day as we here at NBC4 take time to honor the men and women who have served our country by sharing their stories. Far too often, these stories of service go untold, but they need to be heard and shared, and we should also honor for their sacrifices and assist them when we can. That's why we have opened our Call 4 lines tonight to support Resurrecting Lives Foundation. The foundation works to raise awareness and to advocate and to find services for our veterans who are struggling with traumatic brain injuries sustained while they were serving. In Ohio, believe it or not, that's nearly 15,000 men and women. 844-44-CALL-4 is the number you can call to help support these veterans. Well, growing up, one Central Ohio native didn't have to look far to learn about some of our nation's heroes who broke racial barriers. As NBC4's Carrie Charles tells us, those heroes are part of a family legacy of service.
Lessons about those who fought in the Civil War and the iconic service members who made history, becoming the first African Americans to serve in what we now know as the U.S. Air Force, can all be found within one man's family tree. And so can a service member born just up the road who helped integrate the Marine Corps during World War II. He's also noted as the first black Marine killed in action.
We've had a long service to the country, and the country needs to express their gratitude and also to enact what is needed so that the generations today are aware of that these are the sacrifices that these men made.
Phillip Tibbs is an Ironton native, grew up in Newark. He's committed to sharing his family's military service, like his father, Howard Tibbs, a pilot, part of the famed Tuskegee Airmen. Distant cousin Qualls Tibbs served in the Civil War, 5th Sergeant in the 27th Infantry Regiment of the U.S. Colored Troops, stationed at Camp Delaware, Ohio. His identification tag is on display at the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. Decades later, Kenneth Tibbs, Qualls' grandson and a Montford Point Marine, would join some 20,000 others who integrated the U.S. Marine Corps.
Kenneth Tibbs was born in Lancaster, Ohio. Lived the majority of his life, teenagers and everything else at that point, in Columbus, on the west side. Between
1942 and 1949, the Montford Point Marines trained at the segregated Camp Montford Point near Jacksonville, North Carolina.
41 and 42, he enlisted in the Marine Corps, and because of the unfortunate realities of Plessy versus Ferguson, the Supreme Court decision, 1896, separate but equal, even meant that, well, we want you to go and fight for the country, but you got to do it separate.
John Thompson knows he is a Montford Point Marine. Thompson enlisted in 1943, earned this uniform a year later, served until 1946. I sat down with him in 2017.
That was a place for blacks to train because we could not be trained at Camp Lejeune.
Thompson, who volunteered for service shortly after high school,
very rigorous training,
remembers serving in World War II.
The segregation that we had in the States followed us on overseas. So we were hoping for a change, of different way of living. It was still a number of years away.
And far from receiving the recognition the unit deserved. But in 2012, a high honor. Congress presented gold medals to the Montford Point Marines. Phillip Tibbs has always known his family story.
It was always to the point of, fascination. I was fortunate enough in that there were photographs of who these particular people were. So we were able to put a face to a name.
Now he makes sure those who came before him are remembered.
Pride and that, carrying on what is family lineage.
Kenneth Tibbs died during heavy gunfire on the beaches in Saipan. That was in 1944. By the way, Phillip Tibbs has at least 2 other family members who fought in the Civil War. As for Mr. Thompson, the Montford Point Marine you met, he still lives in Greensboro, North Carolina.
U.S. Navy veteran John Jack Crowley is one of the 2020 inductees into the Ohio Military Hall of Fame. Now out of service, this Central Ohio decorated veteran continues to serve the community as a firefighter and a combat medic teacher. NBC4's Audrey Hassan has his story.
John Jack Crowley from Hilliard, Ohio, joined the Navy in 2009 when he was just 21 years old.
I went in the military because I was kind of like a troublemaker when I was younger.
In 2011, as a hospitalman with the Marines, he deployed overseas to the combat zone of Helmand Province, Afghanistan.
2010 to 2012 in Helmand Province in Afghanistan, that was when we had to retake a lot. That was even after Bin Laden was killed, we had to retake a lot of lost ground.
For his heroic actions as a medic in June of 2012 during Operation Enduring Freedom, Jack earned a Bronze Star with Valor and a Purple Heart.
And it was the longest probably 2 hours of my life.
While returning from night patrol with his 3rd Squad,
pitch black darkness, one of my Marines stepped on IED, went over there, swept the area, treated them, and I was putting tourniquets on him. I gave him fentanyl probably for the pain.
And under enemy fire, Jack's medical pack had been blown up, but he remained calm and focused on treating his injured soldiers. He credits the mini med kits worn by all Marines for giving him the tools to save lives.
That's what I was using. I was using everyone's stuff and using what was around me to stop the bleeding, pack the wounds, put tourniquets on, stuff like that. Just basic trauma stuff.
Disregarding his own injuries, Jack helped move the casualties to a safe collection point and provided life-saving updates on the patients until the medical emergency evacuation helicopter arrived.
7 out of 10 of us were injured. 2 of them were double amputees above the knee. A bunch of walking wounded, including myself, 1 KIA. And it was like 45, 50 minutes before the British came and CASEVAC'd my guys out.
For his selfless bravery, Jack received the Military Medic of the Year award in 2015. Today, he works as a part-time firefighter and teaches emergency medical technician classes. Although difficult, he often tells his students about his time overseas.
I do it to tell their stories, especially the ones that are no longer here, so that would be like, hey, listen, you probably should learn from our mistakes because you guys are probably going to see the same thing, if not worse.
And he feels honored to be one of the Central Ohio veterans inducted into the Ohio Military Hall of Fame.
Honestly, I was kind of humbled, but also shocked because there's guys that were in the Hall of Fame that are Special Forces.
When Veterans Voices returns, an amazing display in Lancaster that reminds us that freedom isn't free. Today is a day to honor all those who have served their country in war or peace. Our photojournalist John Edwards, a Navy veteran himself, shares an amazing lifelike display at Fairfield County Fairgrounds in Lancaster. paying tribute to the 70th anniversary of the beginning of the Korean War.
We just did this to honor our Korean War veterans. They didn't get too many pats on the back afterwards because it was in such close proximity to World War II, which was so dramatic. A lot of people really didn't even want to talk about war.
Vietnam-era Air Force veteran Larry Smith made the skeleton structure for these soldiers, sailors, Coast Guardmen, airmen, and Marines.
I made all the skeletons, and they were basically just all standing like this without heads on them. We had pictures of each one of the soldiers that's in the Korean War Memorial. And we articulated the arms and legs and the position of them from pictures.
All 19 service members are dressed from head to toe in period-correct uniforms. Details such as helmets, rifles, and radios are authentic looking, and the hands are actually cast from the hands of actual Korean War vets.
I almost have tears in my eyes now just talking about this because it's very emotional.
The display is set up at the Fairfield County Fairgrounds. You can drive through or park with plenty of room to socially distance. They do ask that you wear a mask to be safe.
And when they come out to see the memorials that we have, it shows that they do care.
And just west of the Korean War Memorial is the Field of Heroes, 220 flags with the names of veterans from World War II through present day.
I just want people to come out. This is for their enjoyment, for their fathers, their mothers, their brothers, their sisters, anybody that is a veteran. I hope it means as much to them as it means to me.
And a reminder, volunteers from Resurrecting Lives Foundation are on our Call 4 lines right now. That organization makes it their mission to assist veterans who have traumatic brain injuries. 844-44-CALL-4 is the number you can call if you would like to give them some of your support. And when we come back, Matt Barnes introduces us to a proud Vietnam veteran. More than 2.7 million Americans served in the Vietnam War. More than 58,000 of them died there, and 303,000 were wounded in action. Among them, Columbus resident Henry Guzman, a proud Puerto Rican native and an Army veteran. Matt Barnes has his story.
For as long as he can remember, Henry Guzman knew he wanted to serve, just like his dad and uncle before him.
Latinos are patriotic by nature, okay? We served right from Puerto Rico. You can get drafted to serve in the U.S. Army. from Puerto Rico. You can't vote for the commander-in-chief who sent you there, but you can get drafted.
Henry moved to Youngstown, Ohio at 5 years old, and after high school, volunteered for the U.S. Army just days after getting his draft notice.
I got drafted, and what happened was that the recruiting sergeant said, if you let yourself get drafted, you're going to be treated like crap, so you should volunteer, because they treat them a little differently. No. Everybody got treated the same.
In the summer of 1966, Henry was sent to Vietnam, and like many veterans of that war, the words are hard to find.
It's difficult for me to get into the real nuances of what occurred in Vietnam, only because it is what it is. It's just difficult. I lost a lot of friends there. I don't wish war on anyone. It's horrific. You see people dying around you. I was lucky a lot of times.
Until February 7th, 1967, when he and his company came under fire along a well-camouflaged jungle trail.
I took an AK round to the leg. But I was fortunate because it had to be the way that they were positioned, that all the shots were low shots.
Henry spent the next 11 months recovering in military hospitals and never returned to Vietnam. He was awarded a Purple Heart and Bronze Star for Valor for his service. Now, decades later, he continues to serve, helping veterans find the resources they need, especially those like him who served in Vietnam.
If we weren't in the pandemic, I say hug a veteran. Put your arms around them and thank them for their service. And be thankful that we have veterans that were willing to serve to protect the rights that we have today.
Finding healing through humor. It's something veterans across the country are turning to as they return from war. As Hattie Hawks reports, a special comedy show could just be what the doctor ordered.
It forces you to deal with social anxiety. It also forces you to laugh.
For Andrew Young, laughing wasn't easy when he first got out of the military.
I'd hit a point where maintaining work after service was nearly impossible. I was addicted to Adderall, and drinking heavily and maintaining a regular life wasn't really a possibility.
He was homeless and estranged from his family.
You can break out of that. It's that is a prison that you can get out of. And comedy is one of those things that helped me get out of that.
Through self-deprecating humor, he turned things around. He's now using the creative part of his brain to write and getting positive feedback and connection from a crowd, something social anxiety typically prevents veterans from doing.
That's a connection that typically you don't get anymore after service. A lot of people, you hear them about going into like this very dark, deep hole, so to speak, where it's like you don't feel, you're supposed to feel emotions, and I remember being there. I remember feeling like there is no light at the end of the tunnel.
It's a darkness veterans and their families experience often, which is why Young and several other comics are bringing light and laughter to veterans struggling with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, and families who've lost loved ones fighting for our country. Through the Humor for Healing special.
And the issue with the VA is where I like to go a lot.
And the key to lifting spirits, he says, is keeping the content light.
Don't allow yourself to go dark. Don't allow yourself to go evil. Don't hurt anybody. Don't say anything mean. And if you can take this and make it silly, then you're already making a change, because now you're already changing the way you're thinking.
While comedy has helped him in his journey, he, like many veterans, still needs time and to go at his own pace.
Now, like most veterans, I do have to step back a lot to recharge my batteries.
Humor for Healing also benefiting a local organization. 50% of proceeds go to Resurrecting Lives, a group researching the effects of traumatic brain injury. The symptoms similar to what Young went through and critical to finding a clear path ahead to a life after service. While the show is built to help veterans,
by the time it's said and done, you don't need to be a vet to identify with this material. You don't need to be a Gold Star family member to identify with what we're doing. You just need to be a person that has lived in this world that we live in and can look around and say, man, we need to laugh.
Humor for Healing is just one of the many ways Resurrecting Lives Foundation is trying to help veterans with TBI deal with the isolation of this pandemic. And you can help them in their mission. We've been telling you about their great work. You can call 844-44-CALL-4 now to make a donation. Next, we pay tribute to 2 veterans we lost this year. As we salute America's veterans, we want to take a moment to honor two of them who are no longer with us. This year, Central Ohio lost two true heroes. One of them, a decorated Tuskegee Airman, Staff Sergeant Hilton Carter. The other, Central Ohio's only Congressional Medal of Honor winner, Ron Rosser. My dear friend Mike Jackson was lucky enough to get to know both of them, so I looked through the archives to bring you some of what Mike learned about these two military giants.
It's morning, 20 miles from the enemy.
Future President Ronald Reagan narrated this film about the brave men who made up the all-black World War II fighter group known as the Tuskegee Airmen.
You can't make a fighter squadron out of concrete and aluminum and a can of paint. It takes men.
Fighting men like Hilton Carter, who told Mike Jackson a white major general reminded him the segregated bombers were also fighting prejudice.
That general that was at the bases, he said, well, all that's going to change in time. All that's going to change. We talk about it, you know. And he said, but we just got to go with what we got now. And it's up to you guys, you know.
President Truman is praised for integrating the armed forces, but Carter said First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt was the true driving force for equality in the military. He met and spoke with her in Guam.
She says, these fellows are spending their time here. You know, they could all be going back to school now, because I've talked to a lot of them. They would like to do that, but they spend their time, this time here. And something's got to be done. She said, something's got to be done about this. And she gave the word.
The Tuskegee Airmen came home with 150 distinguished flying crosses, Legions of Merit, and the Red Star of Yugoslavia. Hilton Carter himself earned the World War II Victory Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, the Continental Air Command Scroll of Appreciation, Congressional Gold Medal, and the American Legion Certificate of Appreciation. He lived and died an American hero. Honors and accolades were also bestowed on Ron Rosser, a veteran of the Korean War, serving in the Army's 38th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Infantry Division. He received the Congressional Medal of Honor after staging a single-handed attack on an enemy bunker. His 170-man unit was down to only 35 men, taking heavy fire when Rosser charged 75 Chinese soldiers using all his ammunition. Then, using his rifle to beat enemy soldiers, he dragged injured U.S. soldiers to safety, reloaded, and charged again.
So the second time up, I took on about 200, and they were jumping on me and beat me with rifles and tackled me, and it got kind of hairy there for a little bit. And at one time, there was about 15 of them piled on me. And my regimental commander actually was watching me through binoculars, and he turned to one of his staff people and said, he's gone, there's no hope. And he raised his glasses up to take a final look at me, and I'd shot them all.
Rosser had served in the military and was honorably discharged soon after World War II. The oldest of 15, he then re-enlisted after his younger brother was killed in Korea.
Kind of vengeance is mine type of thing, you know. My motto is you can't kill my brother and get away with it. I don't care who you are or where you're from.
His actions in Korea astoundingly confident.
I could handle it, you know. I mean, that sounds crazy. Yeah, with bullets flying everywhere. I've had my helmet shot off with snipers. I had 2 radios shot off my back. I've had part of my boot blowed off there. I've had more bullet holes in my clothes than you'd believe. The shrapnel rips them. And yet, they never once put me down.
Rosser credited with saving the lives of his brothers in arms, and, like Hilton Carter, he will long be remembered as a humble hero.
I never once thought I did anything that anybody else didn't do. I just always seemed to get myself into something I couldn't walk away from.
We thank you for taking the time to honor our veterans by listening to their stories. If you'd like to see more veteran stories from around the nation, you can visit our website, NBC4i.com, and select Veterans Voices under News. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, and thank you for your service if you are an American veteran.